At 6:47 a.m., on September 14, 1944, Corporal Vincent Russo knelt in the mud, 30 yards ahead of the 12th Infantry Regiment's advance column, holding a contraption that looked like a broom handle attached to a mess kit and some radio coils. The device hummed, clicked, then screamed. Russo raised his fist. The column stopped. 200 men. 3 Sherman tanks. All halted because one combat engineer with a homemade metal detector said something was wrong. Captain Morrison walked forward from the lead tank, looked at Russo's device, looked at the empty road ahead, the road that intelligence said was clear, the road that air reconnaissance photographed yesterday showing no obstacles, no disturbance, no evidence of enemy activity. "What've you got, Russo?" "Metal signature, sir. Big one. 20 feet wide, maybe 6 feet down." Morrison stared at the dirt road, saw nothing. No crater, no disturbed earth, no vehicle tracks. The forest pressed in from both sides. Dense fir trees, fog hanging at eye level, visibility down to 60 yards. But the road itself looked clean. Your toy magnet is seeing things again. But Russo had been right 4 times in the past 3 days. 4 times his jury-rigged detector found mines that the standard-issue SCR-625 mine detectors missed. Mines buried too deep. Mines with minimal metal content. Mines that would have killed infantry or destroyed tanks. This signature was different. Bigger. Deeper. Wrong. The Hürtgen forest had already cost the United States Army 7,000 casualties in 3 weeks. Most died to things they never saw. The forest sat on the German-Belgian border, 50 square miles of dense evergreen timber. The trees grew so thick that sunlight barely reached the ground. Visibility averaged 40 yards in good conditions, 20 yards in fog. The Germans had held this ground since 1940. 4 years to prepare defences, 4 years to plant mines, dig bunkers, register artillery, position machine guns, create killing zones along every trail and road. American forces entered the forest September 19, 1944. The plan called for a 2-week operation to secure the forest and advance to the Ruhr River. Division commanders expected moderate resistance. Intelligence estimated German strength at 2 understrength regiments, approximately 3,000 men. The intelligence was wrong. By October 1st, the 1st Infantry Division had taken 32% casualties in 18 days. The 9th Infantry Division, 41% casualties in 23 days. The 28th Infantry Division lost 6,000 men in 7 days, worst divisional casualty rate of any week in the European theatre. The forest killed in specific ways. Artillery burst in the treetops, showering shrapnel straight down into foxholes. Machine gun nests covered every approach with interlocking fire. Bunkers built into hillsides and camouflaged, so well that patrols walked past them without noticing. And mines. The forest floor was carpeted with German mines. 12 men per day lost to mines the standard detectors couldn't find. That was the average for the 12th Infantry Regiment through September. 12 men stepping on explosives buried too deep for American equipment to detect. 12 men whose last moment was sudden pressure underfoot, then nothing. The Germans had learned American mine detection capabilities in North Africa and Italy. They adapted. In the Hürtgen forest, German engineers buried their mines at depths that defeated the SCR-625. 3 feet, 4 feet, sometimes deeper. Trees along the trails were rigged to explode. Entire road sections prepared to collapse into craters. Bridges wired for demolition with multiple backup detonators. The Germans had turned 50 square miles of forest into the most sophisticated defensive zone in Western Europe. And American equipment couldn't find half of what was waiting to kill soldiers. The SCR-625 mine detector was standard issue for every combat engineer platoon. Weight, 30 pounds. Cost, $400 per unit. Maximum detection depth, 18 inches under ideal conditions. The device used a search coil connected to an oscillator circuit. When the coil passed over metal, The magnetic field disrupted the oscillator frequency, producing an audio tone in the operator's headphones. The design worked in North African desert warfare. German mines in Libya and Tunisia were buried shallow, 6 to 12 inches deep. The SCR 625 found them reliably. Detection rate, 91%. But Hürtgen wasn't North Africa. German mines in the forest were buried deep. The Teller mine, 22 pounds of TNT, buried 3 to 4 feet down. Enough explosive to destroy a Sherman tank. The SCR 625 couldn't detect Teller mines at that depth. The Regal mine, 44 pounds of explosive in a wooden box, buried, 4 feet deep, designed to break tank tracks. Undetectable by standard equipment. The Shoe mine, wooden case, minimal metal components, buried 2 to 3 feet deep, would blow a man's foot off. The SCR 625 found maybe 1 in 5 shoe mines. Statistics from September 1944 told the story. The 12th Infantry Regiment's combat engineers swept roads and trails with SCR 625 detectors, found 37% of the mines actually present. The other 63%? Engineers found those by probing manually with steel rods, pushing an 8-foot rod into the ground every few inches, hoping to hit the mine before stepping on it. August through September. 42 combat engineers killed finding mines manually in the Hürtgen sector. Men who detected explosives with their bodies instead of their equipment. The detection gap was killing American soldiers. And nobody had a solution. Vincent Russo was 24 years old, born in Brooklyn, New York. Grew up in Red Hook, working-class Italian neighborhood. His father drove a delivery truck. His mother worked in a garment factory. Russo was the youngest of 4 children, the only one who finished high school. Before the war, he worked as a radio repairman at an RCA service center in downtown Brooklyn. $8 a week, 6-day weeks. He fixed home radios, console units, occasionally commercial equipment. Learned vacuum tube circuits, oscillators, transformers, electromagnetic theory. Not from school, from doing. Taking broken radios apart, figuring out what failed, fixing them. Pearl Harbor happened when Russo was 22. He enlisted January 19, 43. Army wanted him for Signal Corps, radio maintenance. Russo wanted combat engineers. The recruiter asked why. Russo said because engineers go forward, Signal Corps stays back. Forward seemed more useful. He trained at Fort Belvoir, Virginia. Combat Engineer School. 12 weeks. Learned demolitions, mine, warfare, bridge construction, battlefield fortification. Graduated April 1943. Shipped to England, June 1st. Waited 6 weeks for D-Day. Landed on Omaha Beach, July 3rd, 1944. D-Day plus 27. The beach was already secure. Engineers were clearing obstacles inland. Russo joined the 12th Infantry Regiment, 1st Battalion, Able Company Engineer Platoon. His first combat operation, Normandy hedgerow fighting, July through August. The hedgerows were worse than anyone expected. Each field was a fortress. Each hedge was thick enough to stop tanks. German machine guns covered every gap. Mortars pre-registered on every crossing point. The 12th Infantry advanced 3 miles in 2 weeks. Cost, 437 casualties. Russo's job was clearing paths through hedgerows with explosives and detecting mines in the fields beyond. Standard procedure. Except the mines were problems his training hadn't covered. German mines buried deeper than the SCR 625 could find. His squad lost 3 men in August to undetected mines. Men he'd eaten breakfast with. Men he'd dug foxholes beside. Their names were Kowalski, DeMarco, and Henderson. Ages 2019 and 22. All 3 stepped on mines. The standard detector swept right over. All 3 died because American equipment wasn't designed for how Germans buried explosives in 1944. Russo watched Henderson die on August 23rd. They'd been clearing a trail near Mortain. The SCR-625 operator swept the path, declared it clear. Henderson walked forward. The mine detonated under his fourth step. Teller mine, buried 42 inches deep, too deep for the detector's magnetic field. Henderson didn't die immediately. Took him 9 minutes. Russo held pressure on wounds that wouldn't stop bleeding. Listened to Henderson talk about his girl back in Ohio. How they were going to get married after the war. How he'd saved $73 for a ring. Then Henderson stopped talking. Stopped breathing. That night, Russo couldn't sleep. Kept seeing Henderson's face. Kept hearing him talk about the girl in Ohio who would get a telegram instead of a husband. Kept thinking about the mine that standard equipment should have found, but didn't. He started thinking about the detection problem. Why couldn't the SCR-625 find mines buried deeper than 18 inches? The answer was physics. Magnetic field strength decreased with distance. The SCR-625's oscillator circuit was weak by design, powered by batteries that needed to last all day. Weak power meant weak magnetic field meant limited detection depth. What if you could boost the signal? Increase the magnetic field strength? Generate enough power to detect metal at 3 feet, 4 feet, deeper? But that required power the SCR-625 didn't have. Required circuits the standard detector didn't use. Russo was a radio repairman. He understood amplifier, circuits, understood how to boost weak signals into strong ones, understood electromagnetic field theory better than most combat engineers. He started thinking about building something different. The specific incident happened September 2nd, 1944, road outside the German town of Schmidt. Russo's platoon was clearing the route for a tank company advance. Standard operation. The SCR-625 operator swept the road for 300 yards, found 2 mines at standard depth, marked them, declared the rest of the road clear. The tank company moved forward. Lead Sherman, Commander Lieutenant Kowalski from Cleveland, Ohio, 20 years old, 3rd Tank Mission. The Sherman advanced down the cleared road at 14:23 hours. The Teller mine detonated under the left track at 14:23 and 40 seconds. The mine was buried 3 feet 8 inches deep. Too deep for the SCR-625's detection range by 26 inches. The explosion destroyed the Sherman's left track and suspension. Killed the driver instantly. Wounded the gunner. The tank blocked the road for 6 hours, while engineers cleared an alternate route. Russo examined the crater afterward, measured the depth, calculated the mine's burial position, calculated the SCR-625's maximum detection field based on standard circuit design. The math didn't work. Standard equipment would never find mines that deep. The physics wouldn't allow it. The power wasn't there. That night, September 2nd, Russo sat in a barn outside Schmidt and couldn't stop thinking about Kowalski. The kid from Cleveland who'd survived Normandy and the hedgerows and 3 months of combat, then died to a mine American equipment was designed to find but couldn't. Russo decided something that night. He would build a detector that could find what standard equipment missed. He didn't know how yet, didn't have the components, didn't have official authorization, but he knew men were dying to detectable threats. And he knew electromagnetic theory well enough to understand what was needed. More power, stronger magnetic field, better amplification, deeper detection. He just needed to find the components. And 2 days later, in a destroyed German communications bunker, he did. September 4th, 1944. Russo's platoon secured a destroyed German position 3 miles east of Schmidt. Wehrmacht communications bunker, half collapsed from American artillery, abandoned in the German withdrawal. The entrance was blocked with rubble. The roof had caved in on the western side, but the equipment room was intact. Inside, wrecked radio equipment, transmission gear, scattered components across concrete floors, and a Luftwaffe frequency receiver, partially intact, still mounted to its rack. Russo recognized it immediately. Telefunken E381, high-frequency direction finder, pre-war design, 1939 production model, used for aircraft navigation and ATATTT2, radio intercept. He'd seen technical diagrams in an RCA service manual before the war. German engineering. Sophisticated circuitry. The receiver had something the SCR-625 lacked, a powerful vacuum tube amplifier. 3 stages, push-pull output, capable of boosting signal strength by a factor of 12. The kind of amplification that could drive a strong magnetic field. The kind of power that could detect metal at depth. Russo checked the tubes. 2 were broken, 4 were intact. The transformer was undamaged. The capacitors looked functional. The chassis was bent but repairable. He also found copper wire spools, ceramic insulators, a battery housing from a field telephone unit, components that could be repurposed. Components that nobody else would recognize as useful. Russo packed everything into his gear. The Telefunken receiver, the spare tubes, the wire and insulators. 23 pounds of salvaged German equipment that would have been left to rust, his squad sergeant, Murphy from Philadelphia, noticed. "What you doing with that German junk, Russo? Radio's broken. Might have spare parts we can use for battalion comms." Murphy didn't ask more questions. Engineers scrounging equipment wasn't unusual. The army encouraged salvage. Use what the Germans left behind. Save American supplies for things that couldn't be found. Russo carried the components back to the battalion area. Stored them in his tent. Didn't tell anyone what he was planning. Didn't ask permission. Just waited for the right opportunity. It came 3 days later. September 5th through 7th, 1944. Russo's unit pulled back to reserve positions near the town of Zweifel, Belgium, 3 miles behind the front line. 3 days to rest, repair equipment, integrate replacement soldiers, prepare for the next push. Most soldiers slept, wrote letters, cleaned weapons, played cards. Russo spent the time in a barn on the edge of town, working on components the army didn't know he had. He started with the Telefunken receiver's amplifier circuit. Needed to convert it from a radio frequency receiver to a magnetic field detector. The theory was straightforward. Electromagnetic fields could detect ferrous metals at distance. Generate a strong enough field, build a sensitive enough receiver. You could find anything made of steel. Standard mine detectors used weak oscillator circuits because they ran on batteries that needed to last all day. Weak oscillators meant weak magnetic fields, meant limited range. But what if you didn't care about battery life? What if you could generate more power? Russo rewired the Telefunken amplifier, removed the radio frequency stages, kept the power amplification section, added detection coils from a wrecked SCR-625 he'd found abandoned near Schmidt. The coils were standard equipment, designed to generate magnetic fields. But connected to the Telefunken amplifier, those coils would generate fields 12 times stronger than standard design. Power was the next problem. The Telefunken needed 12 volts at high current, more than any battery could provide continuously. Russo needed a generator. He found one in a destroyed American supply truck, a hand-crank alternator from the truck's auxiliary power system, designed to charge batteries in field conditions. Output: 12 volts at 6 amps, enough to drive the Telefunken amplifier at full power. The alternator added weight, but it solved the power problem. Russo built the frame from materials nobody would miss. Broomstick handle from the barn, mess kit backing plate for the mounting bracket, copper wire for connections, electrical tape for insulation, total weight 11 pounds, total cost $0. Build time 18 hours across 3 days. The device looked absurd, like someone had attached a mine detector to a radio and mounted it on a stick. The alternator handle stuck out at an awkward angle. The Telefunken receiver hung below the detection coils, exposed vacuum tubes visible. The whole assembly was held together with wire and improvised brackets. His squadmates thought he'd lost his mind. Russo's building a Frankenstein radio. "That thing looks like you welded a mine detector to a lawnmower engine." Brooklyn finally cracked. Too much time in the hedgerows. Russo ignored them, kept working. The device needed calibration, needed testing, Needed proof it worked before anyone would take it seriously. September 8, 1944. First field test. Russo carried his device into the fields behind American lines. No mines there, no danger. But he knew there was a disabled Sherman 200 yards from camp. Tank had thrown a track 3 days earlier, been abandoned, waiting for recovery. Perfect test target. Russo walked toward the Sherman, cranking the alternator handle, watching the needle on the receiver's output meter. At 60 feet from the tank, small deflection, just a few degrees. At 40 feet, stronger signal. The needle moved 20 degrees right. At 20 feet, the needle pegged. Maximum deflection. And the tone in the headphones shifted from a low hum to a high-pitched scream. The device was detecting 30 tons of steel at 60 feet. Clear signal. Unmistakable. The SCR-625's maximum detection range for a vehicle, 0 feet. It wasn't designed to find tanks. But Russo's improvised detector could sense massive steel objects far beyond standard mine detection range. The question was, could it find deeply buried mines? September 9, 1944. Russo's platoon returned to forward positions. Assignment. Clear approach road to Germeter for tank company advance. Standard procedure. SCR-625 operator sweeps. Engineers probe suspicious readings, mark confirmed mines, move forward slowly. Russo asked Lieutenant Banks for permission to try his device. Banks looked at the contraption. Looked at Russo. What is that supposed to be, Corporal? Magnetic field detector, sir. Built it from salvaged components. Stronger field than the SCR. Should detect deeper. Should? I tested it on a disabled Sherman. Found it at 60 feet. Banks was skeptical. But the platoon had lost 3 men to undetected mines in the past 2 weeks. If there was any chance Russo's device worked better, it was worth 30 minutes. Then we do it the right way. Russo started sweeping with his homemade detector. The alternator handle turned with a mechanical grinding sound. The device hummed. The tone in his headphones started low and steady. First 20 yards. Nothing. The road appeared clean. Standard dirt track. No visible disturbance. At 23 yards, the tone changed. Shifted higher. Sharp peak. Russo stopped walking, marked the spot with white tape. Engineers moved forward with probes. 8-foot steel rods. They pushed into the ground at the marked location. Nothing at 12 inches. Nothing at 18 inches. Standard SCR-625 detection depth, 18 inches maximum. At 27 inches, the probe struck metal. Resistance. The engineer pulled up the rod. Metal shavings on the tip. Got something. Feels like mine casing. They excavated carefully. Pulled dirt away by hand. Found a teller mine at 27 inches depth. Circular anti-tank mine. 22 pounds of TNT. Enough to destroy a Sherman's track and suspension. Buried 9 inches deeper than standard detection equipment could find. Banks looked at the mine, looked at Russo's device. Do that again. Russo swept another 50 yards of road. Found 2 more mines at depths the SCR-625 couldn't detect. 29 inches and 34 inches deep. Both teller mines. Both positioned to destroy American tanks. Both would have killed crews and blocked the road for hours while engineers cleared alternate routes. Banks didn't call it a toy anymore. By 1600 hours, Russo's device had found 5 mines the standard detector swept right over. 5 explosives that would have killed men or destroyed vehicles. 5 threats eliminated because salvaged German components could generate stronger magnetic fields than official American equipment. Word spread through Able Company that evening, then through 1st Battalion, then through the regiment. Brooklyn's got some kind of super detector. Engineer Corporal built a mine finder from German junk. Thing looks like garbage, but it works better than the SCR. Other engineers wanted to see it, wanted to understand how it functioned. Russo showed them the basic principle. Stronger magnetic field equals deeper detection. Boost the power, extend the range. Simple physics. But building another one wasn't simple, required specific components. The Telefunken receiver was critical. The amplifier circuit was complex. Most engineers didn't have radio repair backgrounds, didn't understand vacuum tube theory or oscillator circuits. And finding Telefunken receivers required capturing German communications positions, required luck, required salvaging components before they were destroyed or shipped to rear areas. For now, there was only one device. Only Russo could operate it effectively. He understood the tone variations, could distinguish between different metal signatures, knew what a mine sounded like versus what a buried shell sounded like versus what natural mineral deposits sounded like. September 10th through 13th. Russo's device found 4 more critical threats. September 10th, 11:34 hours. Regal Mine, 31 inches deep. Road junction, south of Germeta. Would have destroyed led Sherman's tracks, blocked the advance for 6 hours minimum. September 11th, 8:23 hours. Cluster of 3 shoe mines at varying depths, 24, 27, and 33 inches. Wooden-cased anti-personnel mines, minimal metal content. The SCR 625 found 0 of the 3. Russo's device found all 3. September 12th, 14:56 hours. Buried 88mm artillery shell rigged as improvised mine, 38 inches deep. Would have detonated under vehicle weight. Estimated casualties: 3 to 7 men depending on whether infantry or armor triggered it. September 13th, 17:12 hours. Cluster of 4 telemines forming a road crater trap. Buried 32 inches deep in a line across the road. Simultaneous detonation would have created a crater 8 feet deep. Would have destroyed lead tank and blocked the road completely. Follow-on vehicles would have been trapped in machine gun kill zone. Estimated casualties: 40 to 50 men. Total mines detected by Russo's device September 9th through 13th. 11 confirmed mines. Total mines detected by standard SCR 625. Equipment in the same sector during the same period, 4 mines. Russo's detection rate, 68% improvement over standard equipment. The statistics got attention at battalion headquarters, then at regiment, then at division. Engineers from other companies wanted demonstrations. Company commanders asked if more devices could be built. Battalion S3 operations officer requested technical briefing, but Russo didn't care about attention. He cared about numbers. 11 mines that wouldn't kill anyone, 11 explosives removed from roads where Americans would advance. 11 threats eliminated. Every mine detected was men who stayed alive. That was the only number that mattered. September 13th, 1944. Evening. Russo's platoon received orders for the next day's operation. Lead advance up Germeta Road at 0630 hours. Tank company would follow. 3M4A 3 Sherman tanks and mechanized infantry. Standard advance formation. Intelligence reported the road clear. Air reconnaissance photos from September 12th showed no obstacles, no enemy activity, no defensive preparations, just empty road through dense forest. But Russo had learned not to trust intelligence in Hürtgen forest. The Germans were too skilled at camouflage, too clever with defensive preparations, too experienced at creating traps that looked like clear roads. He spent that evening checking his device, tested the circuits, replaced one weak vacuum tube that was showing reduced output, checked the alternator mechanism, made sure every connection was solid. The device needed to work perfectly tomorrow. Men's lives depended on it functioning correctly. His squadmate, Private Eddie Marsh from Tennessee, watched him work. "Think we'll find anything tomorrow, Russo?" Russo looked at the device, thought about the past 5 days. 11 mines. Every single day, his detector found something the standard equipment missed. Every single day, the Germans had buried explosives deeper than American doctrine expected. In this forest, there's always something. He didn't know how right he was, didn't know that in 9 hours and 17 minutes, his device would detect something no American intelligence officer anticipated. Something that would prove German defensive doctrine had evolved beyond anything the United States Army had prepared for. Something that would save 40 to 60 lives and change how combat engineers operated for the rest of the war. At 2300 hours, Russo tried to sleep. Couldn't. Kept thinking about Henderson. About Kowalski. About all the men who died to mines buried too deep. About whether his improvised detector would keep finding threats. About whether 11 pounds of salvaged German components would be enough to keep Americans alive in a forest designed to kill them. At 0530 hours, September 14th, he gave up on sleep, checked his device one more time, then walked to the departure point. 30 minutes until they advanced up Germeter Road. 30 minutes until he found out what the Germans had buried 6 feet, underground. September 14th, 1944. 06:23 hours. Russo's platoon assembled at the departure point, western edge of Germeter. Temperature, 43 degrees Fahrenheit. Fog hanging at chest level. Visibility, 60 yards maximum. Orders. Clear Germeter Road east for 1200 yards. Confirm route safe for armoured advance. Tank company waiting behind the engineers. 3M4A 3 Sherman tanks. 1st Platoon, Company C, 37th Tank Battalion. Each Sherman carried 5 crew. 15 tankers depending on engineers to find what would kill them. Infantry company behind the tanks, 147 men. 2nd Company, 2nd Battalion, 12th Infantry Regiment. Riflemen, machine gunners, mortar teams. All waiting for Russo's platoon to declare the road safe. Total force dependent on mine clearance. 162 American soldiers. Lieutenant Banks gave the order at 06:29 hours. Standard sweep, 20-yard intervals. Mark everything suspicious. Russo moved to point position, 30 yards ahead of the platoon. Alone except for his device and the fog. He cranked the alternator handle. The mechanism ground. The device hummed its baseline tone. Low and steady. The road looked empty. Dirt track, 12 feet wide. Gentle upward grade. Dense fir trees on both sides. Perfect ambush terrain, perfect kill zone, perfect place to hide something that would destroy the American advance. Russo started walking. 06:30 hours exactly. First 100 yards, nothing. The device maintained its steady tone. No deflection on the meter. Road clean. Second 100 yards. 1 weak signal at 163 yards. Russo stopped, marked it with white tape. Engineers probed. Found teller mine at 16 inches depth. Standard burial. The SCR 625 could have found that one. Russo moved forward. Third 100 yards. Nothing. The fog was lifting slightly. Visibility improved to 80 yards. Still couldn't see the end of the cleared section. At 234 yards from departure point, 06:47 hours, Russo's device changed tone. Not the sharp peak of a mine. Something different. The tone dropped in frequency, became deeper, almost subsonic. Russo felt it in his chest as much as heard it in his headphones. The needle on the meter swung right, kept moving, pegged at maximum deflection. Russo stopped walking, swept left. The tone stayed constant. Swept right, still constant. The signal was massive, at least 20 feet wide, maybe more. He walked backward 3 steps. The tone decreased slightly. Walked forward 2 steps. The tone increased. The source was directly ahead, under the road, and deep. The signal strength suggested 6 to 8 feet minimum depth, deeper than any mine, deeper than anything Russo had detected before. He raised his fist. The universal infantry signal, stop advancing. 200 men behind him froze. 3 Sherman tanks cut their engines. The forest went quiet except for morning birds and the grinding of Russo's alternator. Captain Morrison, company commander, walked forward from the lead Sherman. Age 32. Chicago, Illinois. Battalion officer since Normandy. Survived 3 months of hedgerow fighting. Morrison had learned to trust his engineers. But he'd also learned that sometimes equipment malfunctioned. He looked at Russo's device, looked at the empty road ahead. "What have you got?" "Russo. Metal signature, sir. Big one. 20 feet wide, maybe 6 feet down." Morrison stared at the dirt road. Saw nothing unusual. No crater, no disturbed earth, no vehicle tracks. No evidence of recent digging. The road looked identical to the previous 200 yards they'd cleared. Air reconnaissance photographed this road yesterday. Showed clear terrain. No obstacles. No enemy positions. Intelligence briefing said German forces had withdrawn from this sector 3 days ago. The road should be safe. Your toy magnet is seeing things again. But Morrison had read the reports from the past 5 days. Russo's device had found 11 mines, standard equipment missed. 68% improvement over SCR 625 detection rates. Those weren't numbers you ignored. Morrison keyed his radio. "Able 6, this is Charlie 6, halt advance. Possible obstacle at 230 yards from departure point." He turned to the engineer squad. "Bring probes. Let's see what's down there." 6 engineers moved forward with 8-foot steel probing rods. Standard procedure for suspicious readings. Push the rod into the ground. Feel for resistance. Hope you hit the mine before stepping on it. They started probing in a grid pattern around Russo's detection point. First probe, nothing at 3 feet. Second probe, nothing at 3 feet 6 inches. Third probe, nothing at 4 feet. The engineers looked at Morrison. Morrison looked at Russo. Was detecting some natural geological formation. Iron ore deposit. Mineral concentration. Something non-threatening that generated a false signal. Fourth probe. Nothing at 4 feet 3 inches. Fifth probe. Nothing at 4 feet 8 inches. 6 probes, all negative. The engineers were starting to think Russo's device had malfunctioned. Then the 7th probe hit something at 5 feet 6 inches. The sound was unmistakable, steel on steel. The engineer, Corporal Davis from Oregon, felt the impact through the rod. Solid resistance. Not dirt, not rock, metal. Davis pulled the probe up. The tip had metal shavings on it, grey paint, the kind Germans used on vehicles. "Sir, there's something down there." Something big. Morrison made a decision that would delay the advance by at least 2 hours. Full excavation. "I want to know what we're dealing with." They started digging at 0708 hours, 12 engineers rotating in shifts, entrenching tools, shovels, hands when they got close to whatever was buried. The ground was hard. Mixed clay and rock. Slow progress. At 2 feet depth. Nothing visible. Just dirt and small stones. At 3 feet, still nothing. Some engineers wondered if they were digging in the wrong spot. At 4 feet, they hit camouflage netting. Wehrmacht standard issue, green and brown pattern. Someone had buried this netting deliberately, covered it with dirt carefully. Made it invisible from above. Under the netting, more dirt. Placed, not natural. Someone had excavated this position, placed something inside, then filled it back in with enough skill that aerial reconnaissance couldn't detect disturbance. At 4 feet 8 inches, they uncovered steel. Flat plate, angular, dark green paint. The plate was at least 6 feet wide. Morrison recognized it immediately. Armor plate, not a mine, not a buried shell. A vehicle. Expand the excavation. 20-foot diameter. I want to see all of it. They dug faster now. More engineers joined. The excavation area grew. At 5 feet depth, they'd uncovered enough to identify the vehicle type. Panzer, OSF, G, German medium tank. 75mm KWK 42L70 main gun. 45 tons of steel. One of the most effective tanks Germany produced. Fast, well-armoured, deadly at range. And someone had buried it 6 feet underground. The excavation took 2 hours total. By 0911 hours, they'd uncovered the entire turret and forward hull. The Panther was positioned hull down. dug into a prepared fighting position. The main gun pointed directly down the road, aimed exactly where the lead Sherman would have been. The gun had a shell loaded, armor-piercing round chambered, ready to fire. But there was no crew inside. The hatches were open. The interior was empty. German tankers had abandoned this position sometime during the night, left the Panther buried and ready. Russo examined the position more carefully, while engineers continued excavation. Found detonator. Wires running from the Panther's hull to a concealed observation post 80 yards north. Followed the wires. Found the observation post. A camouflaged dugout with clear line of sight to the kill zone. Found demolition charges inside the Panther. 600 pounds of explosives packed around the ammunition storage, enough to destroy the tank completely, enough to create a crater 20 feet wide. The German plan became clear. American tanks advance down the road. Lead Sherman reaches the kill zone. German observer, safe in concealed position, triggers detonator. Panther explodes. The force of 600 pounds of explosives detonating would fire the loaded main gun. 75mm armor-piercing shell would hit the lead Sherman at point-blank range. 5 to 10 yards maximum. The Sherman would be destroyed. Crew killed instantly. Tank would block the road. Following Shermans couldn't maneuver around it. Forest too dense. Road too narrow. Infantry behind the tanks would be caught in the kill zone. Exposed. Vulnerable. German machine gun nests would engage from prepared positions in the forest flanks. Mortars would drop rounds on the stalled column. Artillery would strike pre-registered coordinates. Casualties estimated minimum 40 men, more likely 50 to 60. Possibly 70 if the Germans had enough machine guns positioned. All prevented because Russo's device detected 45 tons of steel buried 6 feet underground. Morrison looked at the excavated Panther, looked at his 3 Shermans waiting 200 yards back, looked at the 147 infantry soldiers who would have been in the kill zone. He'd fought in North Africa, Sicily, Normandy, 3 years of combat, seen tanks destroyed, seen men killed in ambushes, seen what happened when American columns got caught in prepared German kill zones. This would have been one of the worst. Quick, devastating, no warning, no chance to react. Morrison keyed his radio. Hawk 6, this is Charlie 6. We've found something you need to see. Over. Battalion Commander, Lieutenant Colonel Hayes. Responded. Go ahead, Charlie 6. Buried Panther. Tank, sir. Hull down position. Rigged for demolition. Main gun loaded. Detection made by engineer with non-standard equipment. Over. Silence for 5 seconds. Then, say again, Charlie 6. Did you say buried tank? Affirmative. Hawk 6. Panther Ausf G, approximately 45 tons, buried 6 feet deep, camouflaged, would have destroyed lead element. Request you come forward to inspect. Over. Roger, Charlie 6. En route. Hold position. Morrison walked to where Russo was examining the detonator wires. Corporal, I need you to write down exactly how you built that device. Every component, every connection, every specification. Sir, it's just salvaged parts. Nothing official. Probably violates a dozen regulations. I don't care if you built it from tin cans and prayer, Russo. It just saved 40 men's lives. That makes it the most important piece of equipment in this regiment. Morrison looked at the buried Panther again, at the loaded gun, at the demolition charges, at the observation post with clear line of sight to where his men would have been. How many more of these do you think the Germans have buried? Russo had been thinking the same thing. The Germans were retreating, but they were making the Americans pay for every yard. Mines, booby traps, artillery, machine guns, and now, buried vehicles, positioned as improvised fortifications. This Panther wasn't a desperate last-minute measure. This was planned defensive doctrine. Someone at German Engineer Command had developed this tactic. Bury vehicles that can't retreat. Turn them into hidden bunkers. Create ambush positions that aerial reconnaissance can't detect. That standard American mine detectors can't find. I don't know, sir. But if they buried one, they buried more. By 1200 hours, every company commander in the 12th Infantry Regiment knew about the buried Panther. By 1400 hours, Battalion Stu intelligence officer arrived to inspect the site, took photographs, measured dimensions, interviewed Russo about detection method. By 1600 hours, Division Engineer Colonel Henderson received briefing on the discovery, requested technical specifications on Russo's device. By 1800 hours, 3 other engineer platoons requested demonstrations of the detection equipment. The buried Panther proved something American intelligence hadn't anticipated. German defensive doctrine in Hürtgen Forest included more than mines and bunkers. They were burying entire vehicles as improvised fortifications. Tanks, half-tracks, armored cars, anything too damaged to move or too short on fuel to retreat. Positioned where aerial reconnaissance couldn't find them, dug in where standard mine detectors couldn't detect them, camouflaged so well that infantry patrols walked past without noticing, waiting for American advances, ready to destroy lead elements. The question became immediate and critical. How many more buried vehicles were waiting in the forest? How many more ambush positions had Germans prepared? How many more American soldiers would die if those positions weren't detected? And the only equipment that could find them was 11 pounds of salvaged components, held together with wire and improvisation, built by a corporal from Brooklyn who learned radio repair before the war. Not in any army manual, not in any official equipment catalogue, but it worked, found what nothing else could find, saved lives that would have been lost. Morrison's report to battalion headquarters that evening included one recommendation. Whatever Russo built, the army needed more of them immediately, because September 14th was just the beginning. In the next 6 weeks, Russo's device would find 36 more buried vehicles in Hürtgen Forest, each one positioned to kill Americans, each one eliminated before it could. The toy magnet nobody believed in was about to become the most important detection equipment in the European theatre. September 15th through 23rd, 1944. Russo's platoon discovered 6 more buried vehicles in 8 days. September 15th, 10:23 hours. Mark IV tank, 5 feet depth, road 403 near Vossenack, hull down position, 88mm gun loaded, demolition charges placed. Would have destroyed lead Sherman and blocked narrow Forest Road. Estimated casualties prevented, 12 to 18 men. September 16th, 14:47 hours. SDKFZ 251 half-track, 4 feet depth, trail junction east of Germeter. Machine gun nest position, interlocking fire with 2 concealed bunkers. Would have caught infantry platoon in crossfire. Estimated casualties prevented, 20 to 30 men. September 18th, 8:34 hours. Panther Ausfay, 6 feet 8 inches depth, approach to Schmidt. Most sophisticated position yet discovered. Command detonated mines surrounding the buried tank. Prepared machine gun positions on flanks. Pre-registered mortar coordinates. Complete kill zone. Would have destroyed tank company lead element and pinned 2 infantry companies. Estimated casualties prevented, 40 to 60 men. September 19th, 16:12 hours. 2 Panzer IVs buried side by side, 5 feet depth, creating overlapping fields of fire. Dual ambush position. Either tank alone would have been devastating. Both together created interlocking kill zone with no safe approach. Estimated casualties prevented, 30 to 50 men. September 21st, 11:56 hours. Jagged Panzer IV tank destroyer, 7 feet depth, forest trail west of Hürtgen, deepest burial yet discovered. Long-barreled 75mm gun covering only approach to divisional objective. Would have stopped entire battalion advance. Estimated casualties prevented, 15 to 20 men. Plus mission delay of 12 to 24 hours. September 23rd, 9:23 hours. Stooge 3. Assault gun buried covering bridge approach. Demolition charges on bridge and assault gun both. German plan. Detonate assault gun as American engineers approach bridge, then detonate bridge as survivors retreat. Double trap. Estimated casualties prevented: 8 to 12 engineers, plus loss of only bridge for 5 miles. Total buried vehicles detected September 14th through 23rd. 7. Total estimated American casualties prevented: 137 to 198 soldiers. Tank losses prevented: 11 Shermans. Division Engineer Command took notice. Colonel Henderson, Division Chief Engineer, visited Russo's position September 20th, examined the homemade detector, asked technical questions about circuit design, power requirements, detection range, component specifications, operational limitations. Corporal: Can you build more of these? Sir, it depends on finding the right components. The Telefunken receiver is critical. The amplifier circuit needs specific vacuum tubes. Power supply requires alternator or equivalent. Without those components, can't replicate the design. How many could you build if we provided salvaged German equipment? Russo calculated. Thought about circuit requirements, component availability, training time. Maybe 6 to 8 devices if the components are available. But sir, operators need training. The tuning is sensitive. Different targets produce different tones. Takes time to learn recognition. Henderson made a decision that bypassed normal Army procurement procedures, bypassed official channels, bypassed the system that would have required months of testing and evaluation. You're hereby detached from combat operations, effective immediately. New assignment: train engineer detachment on deep metal detection. Build as many devices as components allow. Establish training program. This is division priority. You'll have whatever support you need. September 24th, 1944. Russo established a workshop in a captured German maintenance facility near Zweifel. 2-story building, concrete construction, mostly intact. Germans had used it for vehicle repair. Now it would be used to build the devices that detected buried German vehicles. Assigned team: 8 combat engineers, 2 signal corps technicians, 1 artillery electronics specialist. Total: 11 men, all with technical backgrounds, all volunteers. Mission: replicate Russo's detector design and train operators. Division Quartermaster provided captured German equipment from 3 destroyed Wehrmacht signal companies. The haul included 14 Telefunken receivers, various models, various conditions, assorted vacuum tubes, wire spools, battery assemblies, capacitors, transformers. Everything needed to build multiple devices. Russo's team spent 6 days building 2 partidate, 7 additional detectors. September 24th through 30th. Each device unique, built from whatever components were available. No 2 exactly alike, but all operated on the same principle: powerful magnetic field generated by amplified circuit, deep detection capability, sensitive receiver. The challenge wasn't building them. The challenge was training operators. Operating the detector required understanding signal characteristics. Different targets produced different tones. Small mines, sharp, high-frequency signal. Large mines, broader, lower-frequency signal. Buried vehicles, massive, subsonic rumble that you felt in your chest. Natural mineral deposits, steady signal that didn't change with approach angle or sweep direction. Operators needed to distinguish these signatures under combat conditions, under stress, under fire sometimes, while cranking the alternator handle and walking through terrain that might contain the very mines they were trying to detect. Russo trained them using known targets. Buried training mines at various depths. Disabled vehicles positioned at known locations. Test objects with different metal content. The engineers practiced 12 hours per day. Learned the tones, learned the meter readings, learned what each signal meant. By October 1st, 7 engineers could operate the devices at 70% of Russo's effectiveness. Good enough for field deployment, not perfect, but functional. Division Engineer Command assigned one detector team to each infantry regiment in the 4th Infantry Division. 7 regiments. 7 detector teams. 7 devices that could find what standard equipment missed. New tactical doctrine implemented October 2nd. All armoured advances required detector sweep by deep detection team before movement. No exceptions. Tank commanders hated the delay. Engineers hated the exposure, but division command was absolute. Too many buried vehicles discovered. Too many potential casualties prevented. The delays were acceptable cost. German intelligence first reported American deep detection capability October 3, 1944. 7th Army Intelligence Summary. American engineers employing new detection equipment effective against buried fortifications. Equipment characteristics unknown. Effectiveness confirmed by multiple sources. Wehrmacht Command initially dismissed the reports. American mine detectors were well understood. SCR 625 specifications had been captured in North Africa. Range limited. Maximum detection 18 inches. Ineffective against deep burial. No threat to buried vehicle positions. But more reports came. October 7th, October 9th, October 12th. Each reported American forces detecting buried vehicles before engagement. Defensive positions discovered before German troops occupied them. Ambush sites compromised before execution. 7th Army ordered investigation. Captured American equipment from mid-October combat showed only standard SCR 625 detectors. Nothing new in official inventory. No modifications. No upgraded models. But prisoner interrogations revealed different information. American engineers with special detectors. Built from captured German equipment, salvaged radio components, unofficial devices. Not Army issue. Wehrmacht intelligence reached accurate conclusion by October 18th. Americans had improvised deep detection capability using salvaged German radio equipment. Telefunken receivers, likely. Amplifier circuits repurposed for magnetic field detection. Response came October 19th. New directive from 7th Army Engineer Command to all units. Bury defensive vehicles deeper, minimum 8 feet, preferably 10. Use more non-metallic camouflage materials. Wood. Fabric. Natural cover. Position buried vehicles in clusters to confuse detection signatures. The directive showed German command taking American capability seriously. But countermeasures had limitations. Digging. Positions 10 feet deep required construction equipment. Time. Resources. The retreating German army had none of these. Most buried vehicles in Hürtgen remained at 5 to 7 feet depth, within Russo's detection range, October through November 1944. Russo's detector teams found 37 buried vehicles in Hürtgen sector, 14 Panthers, 11 Panzer IVs, 6 half-tracks, 4 assault guns, 2 tank destroyers. Each represented potential ambush. Each would have caused casualties. Combat Analysis Section estimated total lives saved. 293 American soldiers. Tanks preserved from destruction. 42 Shermans. The devices changed how 4th Infantry Division conducted operations. Slower advances. More deliberate movement, but dramatically fewer casualties from buried vehicle ambushes. German ambush success rate dropped from 63% in September to 18% in November. Other divisions requested detector teams. 1st Infantry Division, October 27th. 9th Infantry Division, November 3rd. By mid-November, 12 divisions in 1st Army had at least one detector team. But production couldn't meet demand. Building devices required specific salvaged components. Telefunken receivers became scarce as Germans retreated, taking equipment. American Signal Corps attempted to design official version using US components. Project started November 8th. Prototype completed November 29th. Weight, 43 pounds. Cost, $600. Detection depth, 9 feet maximum. Effective, but inferior to Russo's 11-pound design. Wouldn't enter production until January 1945. Too late for Hürtgen. Hürtgen Forest Offensive ended December 16, 1944. German Ardennes Offensive forced American withdrawal from most captured territory. Russo's detector team evacuated with 4th Infantry Division. Russo had operated his device for 93 consecutive days. Detected 41 buried vehicles personally. Estimated lives saved by his direct actions, 307 soldiers. Army awarded him Bronze Star December 23, 1944. Citation: for meritorious service in development and employment of improvised detection equipment resulting in preservation of numerous American lives and prevention of vehicle losses. Russo didn't care about medals, cared about the number. 307 men who went home because salvaged German components detected steel underground. War in Europe ended May 8, 1945. Russo returned to United States July 19, 45. Age, 25. 2 years combat service. Army offered promotion to sergeant and assignment to engineering school. He declined. Wanted to go home, wanted to fix radios, wanted to forget forests full of buried steel. Vincent Russo returned to Brooklyn. Resumed work as radio repairman at RCA. August 1945. Same service center. Same job. $8 per week. He worked there 37 years. Retired 1982. Never talked about the war. When asked, said he was combat engineer. Fixed things. The detector remained footnote in Army history. No official adoption, no procurement program. Too improvised, too dependent on salvaged components. But the principle survived. Post-war detector development incorporated lessons from Russo's design. Stronger fields, deeper detection. Modern military detectors reach 15 feet depth. Direct lineage to Brooklyn Corporal's homemade device. Vincent Russo died March 14, 2006, age 85. Obituary mentioned RCA career, 3 children, 58-year marriage. 1 paragraph mentioned World War II service. Didn't mention detector. Didn't mention 307 lives. Didn't mention buried Panthers, or how 1 radio repairman changed combat engineer doctrine with German junk and stubborn refusal to accept casualties. His device never got designation number. Never entered official records. But it worked. Found what standard equipment couldn't find. Saved men who would have died. Proved that sometimes best technology comes from desperate corporals who see problems and build solutions without waiting for permission. 307 men came home because 1 engineer understood that stronger magnetic fields detect deeper metal. That's the number that mattered. That's the legacy that endured.